Hello, good evening to all. Thank you for the introduction and uh, thank you, PCSI, for this opportunity. Without further ado, my topic, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
So the topic I have been given is the story that continues after the baby of TOF has been treated with a cardiac repair. Now, why do we call it a story? There's been 6 decades of TOF repair babies which have been coming with morbidity after surgery. Definitely, there's a reduction in mortality and morbidity by the surgery, but what we had considered it as to be a definitive treatment would be revised, and more so it's like a palliation with the continued sequelae. Now the sequelae could be two types where we are referred these TOF babies for evaluation. One is the surgical complications, which is usually seen in forms of free PR and right heart volume overload, RV failures, arrhythmias, and deaths. The second would be arrhythmia induced sudden cardiac deaths. There is a progression of the disease in terms of hemodynamic instability and an ascending aortopathy, which adds to the contribution of these babies which have been referred. I have put up a slide by Dr. Teljiva here, which is from the Journal of Cardiovascular Imaging. It's an old article, but still holds very good for cardiac imaging in post-repair TOFs. The emphasis is basically on the residual lesions, whether there is any residual RVOT obstruction or infundibular muscle mass present. What we need to even look at to whether the integrity of the VSD patch is maintained. The RVOT obstruction and the main and branch pulmonary artery stenosis, whether they are still there as their progression. Tricuspid valvular abnormalities can be because of the progression of the disease, right heart failure, where you have tricuspid dilatation and TR. There could be also because of the ventricular septal patch, which could encroach onto the septal tricuspid leaflet, and you will have a pathological tricuspid TR. RV fibrosis has a very great outcome in terms of a fibrosed RV wall may not recover with any further interventions and treatment, whereas ruling out fibrosis would help in prognostication post further surgeries. Coming to the most important chunk of referral is because we need to quantify the pulmonary regurgitation, look at the RV functions volume as well as the LV functions and volume, because there is a ventricular interdependence here. Looking at any residual shunts because of the VSD patch or in residual ASD. So these are usually the referral questions which we get through. Now, so our goal from imaging should be we define the RV volumes, look whether the criteria is matched for any further intervention, RV volumes and functions, pulmonary regurgitation fraction quantification, TR quantification, RA dilatation, how big is the RA, whether that can cause arrhythmia, is there any scar, dyssynchrony, how bad is it, whether there is akinesia or dyskinesia, whether the RVOT aneurysm exists, whether the RVOT is dyskinetic, whether there is residual RVOT obstruction, whether there is main or branch pulmonary artery stenosis, is there any residual shunt, whether there is an AST that is left out, whether that's causing problem, whether there is a fibrosis or scar in the RV and also in the LV volumes and functions, as well as ascending aortopathy and aortic regurgitation, which is a part and parcel of TOF. Modalities, I wouldn't go too much into a discussion of which modality. Like we have all discussed, MRI overscores most of the other modalities in terms of these questions which we need to answer. This is an article which I have quoted where it shows that RV functions, RV volumes, LV functions, LV volumes, as well as viability and whatever the shunt, these things are better seen with MR than any other modality, whereas MR falls a little short in pulmonary stenosis and RVOT gradients, which is better scored by cath angio. Aortopulmonary collaterals have been given equal thing with cath, but I find CT practically much better for aortopulmonary collateral. Small shunts for aortopulmonary collateral can be picked up in MR. The disadvantage being availability, ionizing radiation, and sometimes longer duration of study and sedation needed in younger babies. This is usually the toolbox which we use in cardiac MRI. We start with the localizers, the black blood imaging, bright blood imaging. Then we go ahead and do the phase contrast study for the flows, regurgitation fractions. We look at MR angio for any outflow obstruction, as well as branch pulmonary artery stenosis, as well as ascending iotopathy, aortic root dilatations. We do give contrast and do a late gadolinium, but before that, we acquire an early GAD with a high TI time to look at any thrombosis in the RV outflow or at the pulmonary conduit, valve, and main pulmonary arteries. We also can add in 3D heart navigated sequences, T1 mapping, as well as 4D flow or vector imaging. These are based on the availability. T1 mapping definitely gives an added benefit as to look for diffuse fibrosis and RV insertion point fibrosis. 3D heart is a non-contrast, so it's useful when there is derangement of renal parameters. 4D flow is the future where you can actually predict the way the flow is navigated through the pulmonary arteries and the aorta to pick up the abnormality earlier and treat them. We'll go through case-based scenarios now. I have 4 cases that I will quickly go through. Case number 1, this is a 26-year-old female who presented post TOF repair at the age of 1. She is coming with symptoms of class 3, breathlessness and free PR. This is just the localizer images which we take to the chest, which gives an, I'm not going to go too much into details because it's been spoken about. Once we finish the localizer images, we plan our black blood images in axial and SAT sequences. Now, what I particularly find thing is, if there is a surgical approach needed, doing a SAG black blood would be very useful if you're not going to do a CT before surgery to get a good retrosternal view. We do a set of cine images where these are the cine images taken for this patient. What we see here is there is some amount of RV dilatation and mild RV dysfunction here, mild to moderate. But what we see is there is significant RA dilatation and there is an interatrial septum which is bulging. So says there is a lot of pressure and volume overload. We can see a good jet of eccentric tricuspid regurgitation. The tricuspid regurgitation, the septal leaflet does not have good cooptation and is a little bit of contractility is less in the septal leaflet. This says that it is probably post-surgical severe TR here. Coming to the next images, we take RV outflow views in all these patients in 2 orthogonal planes, the SAG and coronal. You can see that there is free PR, but there is also no RV outflow aneurysm. There is no RVOT obstruction. Basal septal bounce is seen because of the patch as well as an inherent LVBB in most of these patients as a general rule. So you would see for some dyssynchrony, whether the dyssynchrony is significant or not significant is to be assessed. It also gives an in-view, it also gives a good view of the tricuspid valve and you can make out at what level. You can see there is foreshortening of the septal leaflet of the tricuspid valve here. So that could be because of post-surgical and not just functional. That is a very important information you can give. These are short axis images and axial acquisitions of the same baby. This is done usually for volumetry as well as to look at the septum interventricular interdependence well. RV free wall, LV free wall motions can be seen well. Axial cine gives an overall view. You can look at the arch anatomy, branching, anomalous vessels, left SVC, persistent retroaortic, what can be associated and can be sometimes missed out during the surgery. Now, once we have looked at this case, this patient has RV dilatation, has significant RA dilatation, has a moderate to severe TR, doesn't have RV outflow obstruction, and has a free PR. Volumetry done for this patient is as such. I have compared both axial and short axis volumetry just to say that whether you are going to use axial for RV measurements, whether you are going to do short axis for RV measurement, I practically don't find much difference, but we stick to short axis. So whichever institution you are based in, you stick to a particular method of doing it and do mention it in your reports for others to cross-check in the same plane for follow-ups. So that is very important that you mention what you're using. For this baby, we had an end diastolic of 136 and an end systolic of 74. We also had an EF of around 46 for RV calculated, and an LVEF was preserved for 50. Q-flow shows a QPQS of 1 and a PR of 44, moderate TR of around 61 regurgin. So this is more like a...
Dr. Jishan, in the interest of time, please conclude the talk.
Sure. So this is basically a tricuspid annular problem which needs tricuspid repair rather than any pulmonary valve replacement. One case, can I go?
We are running short of time. You have to conclude, and we are sorry to say that. Dr.
Sorry.
Jishan, please conclude.
Okay. So there are scenarios where you can be able to assess pre and post valve replacement and see that the RV shrinks post repair. We can see that this will be particularly useful in follow-up of patients because there is no radiation, and you can compare pre and post images. AST can be missed, which can be picked up on a follow-up, and that could be the reason for failure. So etiology, what progression of the disease, and what is the culprit lesion which needs to be treated. Not all RV failures in TOF need pulmonary valve replacement is what my message is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jishan.